Likutei Sichos, Chelik Chaf, Volume 20, the third Sicha for Parshas Vayera. This Sicha will explain the great aspect of Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, for the sake of Hashem, and especially, specifically, the Mesiras Nefesh of the Akedah, the binding of Yitzchak, and also how this serves as the root, the source, for all future Mesiras Nefesh throughout all the generations. As an introduction, just to familiarize ourselves with some concepts to help us better flow through the Sicha, we know that Avrohom Avinu withstood Asara Nisyonos, 10 tests, 10 challenges which he received from Hashem. Most notable amongst them is the Nisayon of Ur Kasdim, the grand test of when Avrohom was thrown into the fiery pit. And the last of these 10, which is considered to be the most important one, the greatest one, is the Nisayon of the Akedah, the challenge which Hashem gave him and which he stood by and succeeded in, namely the one in which he was to offer his son as a sacrifice. In general, Mesiras Nefesh, what does it mean? So literally it means to give up your life. One gives up one's life for Hashem's sake. However, there's also a deeper meaning to it and a more practical one on a day-to-day basis. And that is, as Chassidus explains, the idea of Nefesh, the ultimate highest level in the Nefesh and the soul of a person is one's Ratzain, one's desires, one's will. So when one gives over, Mesiras Ritzainosav, one gives over their will, the desire to Hashem, that is a constant Mesiras Nefesh. So let's get into the Sikha. In regards to the Nisayon of the Akedah, which is the 10th, and as we said, the final Nisayon of Avrohom Avinu, the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin that if you look at the words that Hashem says, and we recite it every morning, Hashem said to Avrohom, Kach na es bincha es yichidcha, he says to him, take please. Hashem basically is pleading with him, ask them please to do it in a lashon of bakasha. So the Chazal tell us that what Hashem was saying to Avrohom is, I tested you with many tests, and you succeeded. You stood by all of them. Now I ask you, please, I want you to succeed in this one, that they should not say, no one should be able to say, if Avram would have failed in this one, that there is no substance in all the previous tests that Avram had succeeded in. So we need to understand, why would this have been? If Chas v'Shalom Avram Avinu would not have succeeded in this test, why would this have triggered? Why would this have made a reasonable argument to the naysayers that there was no substance in the early ones? Perhaps one could have just suggested, listen, all the early ones weren't as severe, weren't as difficult. They were indeed Mesiras Nefesh. Avram succeeded. This one was just so over the top that he didn't succeed. In other words, why is this the litmus test for all the other Mesiras Nefesh? And this gives the, so to speak, stamp of approval to make genuine all the prior Mesiras Nefesh. So the Rebbe explains that generally speaking, in the concept, the idea of the Akedah, where this is something so integral in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, that we mention it all the time in our prayers, especially in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and so on. And of course, the famous question, why is it that this is, so to speak, the drum that we beat all the time, namely the Akedah of Avram, that Avram was Oiked as Yitzchak, that Avram bound Yitzchak? You could ask the question, throughout all the generations, there were so many holy souls who gave up their lives al Kiddush Hashem. We know, for example, some that we mention on Yom Kippur, Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues, and so too in all generations throughout. Moreover, one can make an argument when it comes to Avram Avinu, his Mesiras Nefesh perhaps wasn't as great, because at the end of the day, Hashem spoke to Avram Avinu. Hashem gave him a direct command. Whereas all the other ones, Hashem never spoke to them, and yet they all were Moser Nefesh. Now you can't answer and say, well, since he was ready to give up his son's life, which is so much more difficult, therefore it's so special, it stands out so much. Because that's not a sufficient answer. Why? Because we do find, whoever knows Jewish history throughout all the generations, there were many, many cases in which people gave up the lives of their children, including their own. For example, the one that stands out is the story that happened during the time of Nebuchadnezzar, when you had Hannah and her 7 sons. Hannah and the 7 sons, each one of them, by her encouragement, gave up their life just not to bow for Avodah Zarah. And in fact, as the Medrash tells us, she said, you, meaning Avrohom Avinu, you only made an altar, so to speak, for 1 son, and I made 7 altars. I sacrificed 7 sons. So back to the question, what is so special, what is so unique about the Nisayan of the Akedah? Now, there are those who give or suggest an answer that since Avrohom Avinu was not compelled, he was not fully obligated to offer his son, because Hashem didn't give him a direct command, but rather, as we said, if you look at the wording in the verse, Hashem said, please, I ask you, please to do this. It was only like a request. Therefore, however, therefore, it's so significant that Abraham almost like chose to do it. Whereas all the other Kedoshim, all those others who gave up their lives for Hashem throughout the old generations, they are compelled by the commandment in the Torah in Parshas Emor, which says, "V'nigdashti b'seich b'nei Yisrael," that there is an obligation of Kiddush Hashem. It's one of the 613 mitzvahs. He says, the Rebbe, this is not a sufficient answer. The Rebbe actually negates this answer. And he says, number one, you understand, it's obvious that for Avrohom Avinu, a quote-unquote request from Hashem is as sacred as a command. That is not compelling. Number two, amongst all these Kedoshim throughout the generations, there were so many that really were not compelled by the law, not obligated purely by the mitzvah of V'nikdashti b'seich b'nei Yisrael. Rather, it was elective on their part, to the extent that there are many that there's even a discussion about them, whether they were in the right to give up their lives or not. They had to, so to speak, find a heter, find some allowance, some permissibility according to halacha to give up their lives. So the question goes back, what is so significant about Avrohom Avinu's Mesiras Nefesh that we mention it all the time? So the explanation that Rebbe brings, the famous one that's explained in Chassidus, that since Avrohom Avinu was the first one, the very first one that succeeded in Mesiras Nefesh, so therefore he is like the Poiseach Hatziner. He is like the trailblazer, the one who opened up a new conduit. He opened up a new concept, this new phenomena of Mesiras Nefesh. Since he was the first, it was the most difficult. Kol haschal is koshes. And therefore, all the future generations are all really riding on the koyach that he gives us, that he gave them for Mesiras Nefesh. That's the explanation that's given in Chassidus. And the Rebbe says that's a valid one. However, there's still yet one thing that needs to be explained, or better understood. Avrohom Avinu, as we said in the introduction, had 10 tests. And one of the most significant ones amongst them was the Ur Kasdim, the test where he was thrown into the fire for his beliefs and for his refusal to denounce his belief in one God. Why is it that specifically the Akedah is the one that is counted as the Psichas Hatzinor, as the quote, opening of this new conduit of Mesiras Nefesh for all future generation? There, you can say perhaps it was even greater. When Avrohom Avinu was ready to give up his life for his beliefs in Hashem, Hashem had not spoken to him yet. So perhaps it's even greater than here, than the Akedah, where Hashem spoke to him directly and told him and pleaded with him and said, please, I need you to do this for me. So why is it that the Akedah specifically is counted as the greatest act of Mesiras Nefesh, the first great act of Mesiras Nefesh, which is the trailblazer, which is the Psichas Hatzinor for all future generations of Mesiras Nefesh? So the Rebbe says we'll understand this by taking a closer look, a deeper analysis of what is the concept of Mesiras Nefesh in general. See, from the fact that Avrohom Avinu is considered to be the one that was Pasach es Hatzinor, that he opened that conduit, that he generated, so to speak, a new phenomena of Mesiras Nefesh, that implies that had he not done so, had this not happened, then Mesiras Nefesh, the whole concept of it, would not have existed. Why not? It makes sense, logically. Because what is the whole idea of Mesiras Nefesh? The whole idea of Mesiras Nefesh is a novelty. Because in fact, Hashem created us, every single creation of the world, especially the human being, in order to be a yesh, a metzius, that we should exist. We should be in existence. The idea of Mesiras Nefesh is the opposite, to undo that existence. In other words, Mesiras Nefesh, the whole concept of it is not natural. It's the opposite of existence. Because the entire creation, the idea of nature is to propagate existence. Now you can ask, wait, it's not just Avrohom Avinu who had Mesiras Nefesh, and it's not just Jews, it seems, who had Mesiras Nefesh. Throughout the generations, we find instances of people who not only were ready to, but actually gave up their lives for a cause that they truly believed in. They were so adamant about their belief to make a statement, to make it known, they actually gave up their life. They refused to budge, and they made a statement with that. So why is it that we say Mesiras Nefesh is so great? The Mesiras Nefesh of a Yid, which comes from Avrohom Avinu, is so over the top and so fantastic compared to all the other, what seems to be Mesiras Nefesh? The explanation is as follows. As we said, the whole idea of creation is that we should be in existence, that we should exist. Now, sometimes a person believes in something so much, they are so certain about the truth of what they believe in, that they're ready to give up the ultimate price to make a point, to make a statement. Number one, he's ready to give himself totally away, meaning he's ready to give his life up for this, or perhaps even more. The person believes that through giving up their life, paying the ultimate price, they are going to earn, so to speak, a great value. Meaning, a value of existence. This is part of existence because it's a logical thing. Meaning, by them making that statement, now the world is going to become aware of that cause. The world is going to become aware of how important and how true that cause is, because here, in fact, somebody is ready to give up their life for it. Or perhaps it can even be that a person is so certain about the truth of their ways that they just don't feel like living in a world that does not see eye to eye with them. That is not true Mesiras Nefesh, because that really is a calculated, so to speak, price that one is willing to pay, and therefore it goes back to what we said before. It's consistent with the idea of existence. This becomes part or a contributing part of the person's existence. It makes sense to them. However, the idea of Mesiras Nefesh, true Mesiras Nefesh, is that the person is moiser, the ani, the I. You give your own self totally over, beyond any whatsoever calculations, beyond any whatsoever feelings, beyond any whatsoever intellectual rationale. You basically make it so that your own mitzias, your own existence, you give it away for no reason that one understands. This is the difference between, now we can appreciate the difference between the Mesiras Nefesh of Avrohom Avinu by Ur Kasdim, by being thrown into the fiery pit, versus the Mesiras Nefesh of the Akedah. You see, by Ur Kasdim, indeed, Avrohom Avinu was ready to sacrifice himself, but it was a calculation. This was a calculated price he was ready to pay, albeit a holy calculation. But you can say that he was so convinced that one must publicize and spread the knowledge of Hashem in the world that he was ready to make the statement even by giving up his life. However, when it comes to the Akedah, it's exclusively because, as that Hashem says, Ato yodaiti ki yirei Elokim ata. Exclusively because, like Hashem says, now I know that you have true fear of God. It's only because of God, not because of what you understand, not because of what makes sense to you. Because number one, look at the facts. Nobody was present there. Not even Avroham's servants. He told them to stay behind. Nobody really would have known. Nobody would have been there to appreciate the impact of the statement, if indeed it was to make an impact and to make a statement. Furthermore, moreover, if you think about it, this act of Mesiras Nefesh, of the Akedah, made absolutely no sense and no justification, therefore, for his cause. In no way would it propagate his cause. On the contrary, it would stifle it. Why? Because if he would have indeed killed Yitzchak like he thought that's what he has to do, what would have been? There would have been nobody to continue his cause. It would have ended right there. So this was not serving his cause in any way. And this is the greatness of the Akedah. That the only, meaning exclusive reason why Avrohom Avinu carried out this nisayon, the nisayon of the Akedah, is exclusively only because Hashem told him to do so, without any whatsoever expectation or calculation of gain, albeit even a gain of Kedusha. And according to, based on this, we'll understand and we'll appreciate what we asked in the beginning, what the Gemara means when it says that if you do not succeed in this test, then they will say that there is no substance to the earlier tests. Because if he would not have succeeded in this test, then chas v'sholom, people would have said everything that he did before, even allowing himself to be thrown into the fiery pit, that wasn't exclusively for Hashem. That wasn't because of pure Mesiras Nefesh. Rather, it was because it was a calculated marketing ploy, so to speak, and a rational decision that he came to. Indeed, as we said, a rationale of Kedusha, of holiness, but still at the end of the day, it's based on his intellectual and rational decisions. But now that he succeeds in this particular nisayon, which is exclusively, as we explained, exclusively for Hashem, this retroactively points to all the previous tests and proves that they too were not done because Avrohom Avinu decided that it makes sense to do it. It makes sense to pay this ultimate price in order to propagate his cause, but rather it was exclusively for Hashem. And now we can appreciate why specifically this nisayon is the psichas atzinor, the quote, opening of the conduit for Mesiras Nefesh for all future generations. Because what is it that Avrohom Avinu had to channel to all future generations? Not just Mesiras Nefesh, because we said Mesiras Nefesh, which on the surface looks like Mesiras Nefesh, can actually be not Mesiras Nefesh. It can be actually part and parcel of one's existence, one's understanding. But rather what Avrohom Avinu was channeling, was giving to all future generations, was true, genuine Mesiras Nefesh. And this, as we explained, can come only directly from Mesiras Nefesh. From Mesiras Nefesh of the Akedah. This can only come from the Nisayon of Akedah, like we explained. Just to recap, that the true idea of Mesiras Nefesh, which was exhibited by the Akedah, is that a person is giving away his whole Metzias to Hashem. And this is so part of who we are. This is so part of Yiddishkeit. And we have inherited this, so to speak, from Avrohom Avinu, to the extent that Adal Tereb and Shulchan Aruch explains that this is the reason why we say the Akedah, we recite the Akedah every morning. And he gives several reasons to remind of the Sichos, to evoke the Sichos, the merit of the Akedah. But then he adds and he says, and also for one, to subserviate his Yetzer Hara, his evil inclinations. What is the connection? How does it connect to us? Since Avrohom Avinu opened he opened the conduit for Mesiras Nefesh. So that means that now every single Jew, by inheritance, has this koyach, albeit on some level, has the koyach, has this potential to be moiser nefesh. What does it mean on a day-to-day basis? That not that a person has to jump in front of a moving truck or train, God forbid, but rather that a person has the power to be machnia es yitzroi, to bend his own desires, to subserviate his own will to Hashem's will.